beautiful people, and welcome back to the Adult and Pediatric Institute podcast, where we get messy, we get real, we talk about real life stuff with limited filters. My name is Nicole. I am your host. This second video, as promised, will be about my greatest work in progress, myself. Ever since I saw Brené Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability, I have tried to allow myself to be more vulnerable and take what will come. So this episode is hopefully going to do just that. Already, just with that intro, I'm already feeling a little bit nervous. I don't know if you could hear my pen click in the background, but I'm going to try not to do that this whole podcast. All right, so let's dig in. I'm born and raised in Florida. Yeah, I'm one of the few. I didn't have the easiest past either. So without disclosing too much information that's too private, I'll just say that I was conditioned to be a caretaker at a very young age. When I was 17, I joined the Navy. I was a hospital corpsman, and that was my way out. And the only way I could have any hope of going to college, barely graduated high school, was starting to go down kind of a scary path. And so off I went to Great Lakes and then San Diego, where I spent 5.5 years doing what I do best, right? Caretaking others, learning how to save lives. I loved trauma. I loved psych. I think that a lot of people can say I'm maybe an adrenaline junkie or a glutton for punishment. I don't know. I guess it depends on which way you want to look at it. But, you know, I had a lot of really good times in the military, and I had a lot of really dark times as well. I spent 3.5 years on an aircraft carrier. And for those 3.5 years, I did 3 deployments. My feet hardly ever touched land, it felt like, for a very long time. Probably why I hate cruise ships now. It's terrifying to me, very triggering. But I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about myself. I also came out of the military, as a lot of veterans do, very lost in the civilian world. And I had a little bit of a rough, bumpy path trying to find myself, trying to assimilate back into civilian world, trying to not be afraid, let my guard down, not feel like I constantly had to, as we say in the military, have your head on a swivel and ease back in. I made a lot of bad decisions that were fear-based, that stemmed from a root of PTSD. Thankfully, none of those decisions were life-altering for myself or anyone else, thank God. But it was a bumpy path. And it took me about, I'd say maybe 8 years after I got out of the military to finally admit that maybe I had PTSD, maybe I needed to get help. And thank God I took that first step of admitting I need help, because without that, I would have never started my path to becoming the better version of myself that I want to become. I found an amazing therapist. I went to a lot of school. Come to find out, fun fact, one of the characteristics of PTSD is you're constantly changing jobs. You're constantly changing educational paths. You jump around. I realized through a lot of work on myself that one of the reasons that I did that is because for so many years, if I was not in control of a situation, people were dying. People could die. That's a big deal. And that sat with me. And unfortunately, I was around a lot of death. I was around a lot of serious injury. And so I started to correlate my lack of control with dangerous negative outcomes. And so in the civilian world, that survival mechanism that I had developed to keep myself and others alive around me, that was no longer serving its purpose in my life. Instead, what it looked like is if I couldn't control a job or I couldn't control an outcome, I needed to leave. I would get very overwhelmed. And that's not a healthy way of living. And so I got help for that. And I sought treatment. And the Tao Te Ching talks about how we constantly need to dichotomize everything. And it has to be either this or that. In reality, the Tao preaches that it can be both. So I had a lot of dark periods in my life, but there was also a lot of light in that. And I saw a lot of light in that. And one of the good things that came from that moment is I got a lot of education. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to be when I got older. So I started with a bachelor's in psychology and then couldn't do a whole lot with that. So I ended up teaching, which I loved. I started working on my master's in mental health counseling, got almost through the program, realized that I wasn't going to be able to achieve my career goals with that degree. Stopped doing that, went back to school, got a bachelor's in nursing, finished that, immediately got into a psychiatric doctorate of nurse practitioner program, which realized fairly quick. Well, I was about halfway through. Let's be real here. I was about halfway through that program when I realized I don't want to sit behind a desk and just write scripts all day. And at that time, that's what psych NPs did, was they worked under a provider and they just wrote scripts all day. Now, thankfully, that profession has grown a lot more and they have a lot more autonomy. But I didn't want to do that. And so I stopped that program and ultimately ended up getting my master's in nursing administration and leadership. I wanted to change the world. I still want to change the world. That has not gone away. I wanted to be able to move into positions within the healthcare system where I could affect some real change. And so that was my route and that was my path. And I worked in a lot of high-level leadership positions and moved up the chain rather quickly. I took a lot of the strengths that I had gained, character strengths that I had gained in the military, and I applied it to the civilian world. Show up on time, do your best, go above and beyond, under promise, over deliver. And that led to great career success for myself, which was very cool. Now, here's the downside to that, though, is the further up I got within that chain, the more I realized that because of all the bureaucracy and red tape, I couldn't really affect the change. I couldn't be the change agent that I had set out to be. And the only way to do that would be to do it myself. Now, at the same time, I was going through another very difficult journey of trying to get an appropriate diagnosis for my daughter. My oldest daughter had been struggling since she was very young, I would say maybe 4 years old, with some mental health issues. One of them, side note, is perfectionism, which we have as a family tried to change. I try to role model that behavior. We'll get into that talk another day. And I was struggling to navigate the system. I was struggling to navigate the pediatric mental health system. And I was in the field and I couldn't navigate it. And so I could only imagine how the layperson would feel with this. The typical parent would feel who's not a psychiatric registered nurse, who doesn't have the context that I had within the psychiatric world, and I couldn't even navigate it. How are they doing this? And so I blended those two facets of my life, the desire to affect real change and the struggles that I experienced getting my daughter a diagnosis. And my daughter was diagnosed with autism. Shortly after that, my younger daughter was also diagnosed. And I went all in on the autism mom. I got the autism mama bear, baby bear sticker on my car. I, joined support groups. I went all in. And this was my path. This was ultimately the path that I was meant to take in my life, is to advocate for this population, to support this population, to guide other parents like myself or caregivers like myself through this super bumpy and complicated system of special needs care and special needs parenting. And so I started my first company. It was an ABA company. It was very successful. I loved what I did. My partners decided to go in a slightly different direction. And so I divested out of that company and I funded this amazing company, which I'm so incredibly proud of. It's the Adult and Pediatric Institute. coming up with this idea of I wanted to create this psychiatric practice that could do all things, that could practice Western medicine along with supporting Eastern medicine principles. I met my partner who had the same goals, the same ambitions as I did, Dr. Perlitici Morales. Sorry, I butchered your name. I always do. That's why everyone calls her Dr. P. And she's brilliant. And she is a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. And I've never seen someone be able to blend the medical side with the therapeutic side as well as she does. And she doesn't just jump to medications, which was a lot of what was happening in my world with my own kid, right? Is, well, I don't really know what's causing this, but we can prescribe this. And she doesn't do that. And I love that. And she listens to people. And so away we went. And here we are. There's some big goals planned in the future. There is, and I'm so sorry, I keep saying a lot, and that drives me nuts. And I'm going to work on that, right? Because there's a lot of things that I have to work on. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast episode, I am my greatest work in progress. And I recognize that there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't see a characteristic about myself, a survival mechanism that I've developed that I would like to change. And in the same breath, also feeling really proud about how far I've come and my desire to want to help other people that have maybe been through struggles similar to mine. Maybe they've struggled things that I have never even been exposed to. Who knows? I still want to help them. And so again, this podcast is meant to do just that. We want to help people. I want to share information. I want to share resources. I am deeply involved in autism advocacy work. I am deeply involved in mental health and psychiatric advocacy work. I truly think that there's not enough people out there, even professionals, that are willing to talk about some of these subjects and some of these topics that are taboo. And until we start talking about them, the stigma will never go away. I have learned to set boundaries in my life and identify what's really important to me and stay true to what I feel is really important, regardless of what's going on around me. Life has gotten our country has gotten a little anxiety ridden lately, not to go too deep into the political side, but it really has. I'm feeling that too. Nobody is perfect. It is about progress, not perfection. So we're here and I'm on this journey with you guys, and I want to help people however I can. And I want to be a support. Maybe that help looks like a listening ear. Maybe that help looks like sharing resources. I am proud to be a female in the business world. There's not enough of us out there. And what we have to bring to the business world is empathy and nurturing and a way of approaching problems as our counterparts cannot do. And so I'm very proud of that. And I like to lift up other women in business. I think that's the way that we succeed and we continue to break these glass ceilings. And yeah, so that is me, good, bad, and different. And I'm sure you guys will learn a lot more about me in the future on future podcasts. Next up, I'm going to bring on my brilliant partner, my partner in crime, my partner in healing, Dr. P. And I'm going to give her the chance to kind of share with you guys about her and her journey and why she does what she does, and maybe inspire the next future brilliant female doctors out there to want to follow a similar path that she did. So thank you. Keep in mind, always progress, not perfection, and go out and conquer your day.